In 2018, I went through a divorce that left me basically without anything. I managed to move into a small home but had nothing to fill it with. I needed furniture, appliances, literally everything. Obviously, this is a big task to take on, especially financially, so I thought this was the perfect opportunity to get some discounted stuff on Craigslist. My priority was on the big things like a couch, TV, and so on, and it really didn't take long to find some deals. I messaged a few people and pick up a few things, and during this process I found and contacted a seller about buying their TV stand. It was posted for $40 and looked like a super average wooden TV stand. The seller, Matt, was very strict on when I could pick it up, though it had to be after 9 o'clock because of his work schedule, and it couldn't be on the weekend. This time frame still worked for me, but I just found it kind of odd how specific he was, and I figured that was probably why no one had bought it, yet I agreed. 2. With only what looked like a hallway light on inside, I sorted out $40 and shoved the bills in my pocket, then stepped out and walked onto their porch, ringing the doorbell. As I waited, I looked around at his lawn. He had stuff everywhere, like garden statues and just interesting decorations all throughout his yard and even on the deep porch. Then he opened the doormat. Was a tall and skinnier looking man, probably in his 40s. He had a tired look, as if he hadn't slept in days, and I could pick it up on a Wednesday at 9:30, and on that day I followed through. He sent me his address, and I headed out 30 minutes to his place. The town he lived in I'd only heard in conversation before and had never actually been to it, and I soon found out why. Most of the homes were run down and very old. Even the roads were in bad shape, with a lot of the street lights not even working. Pulling up to Matt's house didn't make me feel any better. It was just as rundown looking as the others. With only what looked like a hallway light on inside, I sorted out $40 and shoved the bills in my pocket, then stepped out and walked onto their porch, ringing the doorbell. As I waited, I looked around at his lawn. He had stuff everywhere, like garden statues and just interesting decorations all throughout his yard and even on the deep porch. Then he opened the doormat. Was a tall and skinnier looking man, probably in his 40s. He had a tired look, as if he hadn't slept in days, and I could lit, making it hard to see what condition it was. In any chance you could turn on the light for me? I asked politely. Matt didn't respond, but walked over to the wall and flicked on a small lamp in the corner. It was around this time that I got a really weird feeling that something was wrong, and before I even got to look at the TV and I heard someone else behind me. Another man had come around the corner, standing next to Matt. He didn't say hello or anything, he just watched me. I was really unsure what to make of this and didn't want to overreact right away, but was also getting really uncomfortable as that eerie feeling only grew larger. I was standing there trying to think of what to say or do, but then Matt walked past me and stood in front of the TV stand. They were now on either side of me, facing me, and not speaking. Several long seconds passed as nobody spoke or moved before I quickly walked past the other guy and down the hallway toward the front door. As I left, I heard them laughing in the room behind me like this was funny, and as I got halfway to my car, the front door slammed shut. I can't even find any reasons for what occurred that night or what those two guys were trying to do. Maybe it was just some sick joke they were pulling, trying to get me to freak out, or maybe it was something more sinister. I don't plan on finding out, though. I was 23 and looking for a studio apartment to rent. I was fresh out of college and had almost no moan. Craig's list. I didn't find anything, though I got a bit of hope seeing there were a lot of listings. They just weren't in my area or price range. I think it was on the third or fourth day that I reloaded the website and found a new listing that piqued my interest. It was for a place a few miles away. I clicked on it and looked at all the details, seeing it was a studio in a small apartment building. The pictures were really low quality, like so pixelated that I couldn't see anything. But with everything seeming good, I sent the owner a message. He replied quickly and we scheduled a tour later that day. Around 7 from our quick back and forth, I saw nothing unusual about this guy. His messages were very professional and he seemed happy to show me the place. A couple hours later, I got in my car and started driving over to the address he sent me. I should mention that I knew beforehand that this wasn't a very nice area of our city, but it's the cheapest area, and honestly I didn't think it was that bad, though in hindsight maybe I was just being naive, because it was my only option anyway. I pulled up to this rather old-looking apartment building. I parked on the side of the street and got out, texting the man that I had arrived, and walking up to the front door. I didn't see the man anywhere, so I buzzed the room and waited for a few seconds. Then the door unlocked. I stepped in, greeted by a staircase in the middle and 2 rooms on either side before I even and looking over at me, he greeted me and shook my hand, then showed me inside, but immediately I was confused. The place had a couch, TV, chairs, and even food on the counters. It was clearly lived in. "Does someone else live here?" I asked kindly. The man quickly replied with a short laugh and said no one lived here, and everything would be gone by tomorrow. I smiled and said okay, but that response didn't come off the right way to me. He started leading me further in, pointing out features of the and looking over at me, he greeted me and shook my hand, then showed me inside, but immediately I was confused. The place had a couch, TV, chairs, and even food on the counters. It was clearly lived in. "Does someone else live here?" I asked kindly. The man quickly replied with a short laugh and said no one lived here, and everything would be gone by tomorrow. I smiled and said okay, but that response didn't come off the right way to me. He started leading me further in, pointing out features of the interrupted when my phone chimed. I pulled it out of my pocket and checked to it. Was my face went pale, seeing it was from the man from Craigslist asking where I was. I looked up in horror, realizing what had happened, and I could tell that whoever this guy was in front of me knew that I'd figured it out. This terrifying moment passed, and the guy didn't move or say anything. He just stood and looked at me with a blank stare. After a moment, I hurried out of there and down the stairs, not hearing the guy follow. I got in my car and left, being so horrified I never even texted the actual man back, as I was no longer interested in staying anywhere near that place, and I didn't know if maybe he was in on it too somehow. But whoever that guy was that lured me into his home was so close to being able to probably abduct me. I don't know, and I don't even want to know, but I never opened Craigslist again after that night. I was on Craigslist for the first time in probably